Right then, it is All-Ireland football final week. We have made it to Bundoran. We are in the shadow of the Holyrood Hotel here with the great Brian McEniff. Brian, thanks a million for having us. How are you keeping?
Very welcome here to my home and to Bundoran in particular.
Pauric McShea is also with me on the one condition that we don't make you sing along to the piano a little bit later on.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough summing up of my desire this morning.
It's great to have you both in the same room here. People will know you as legends of the 1972 team that broke the duck and finally won an Ulster Championship for Donegal. But Brian, I hadn't quite realised that in the context of this weekend, you guys have both lined out in the green and gold, not only of Donegal, but also of Kerry.
I mean, there's a scale attaching to that there. It cost me my job as a player manager back in 1974 when I played for Kerry in New York against Donegal in the final along with Pauric, and when I came back I was sacked as player manager.
It's a long story which we might delve into in a moment or two, but Pauric, what are your recollections of that summer in New York and lining out for Kerry?
Well, you know, there was a degree of confusion in relation to how that particular trip actually happened, and quite honestly, and I'm not apologising many years later, but we did not realise when we landed at Kennedy Airport that we were playing against Donegal that particular weekend, and if we had known that, we probably wouldn't have been there. But that's how it panned out, and I would have to say we made a lot of great Kerry friends over there at that particular time, and to this day we still have that relationship with them.
Okay, so this was a season over, going over to play a bit of ball for a New York team, and nobody had told you which particular county you'd be representing.
Well, at that stage, Brian and myself were very young men, and
yes,
we probably hadn't been much further than Dublin. Brian had been in Canada, I hadn't been outside the country, and you know, a trip to New York at that stage was utopia for a guy like me. Dublin would have been as far as I'd made it at that stage, and we weren't going to say no, but we genuinely went over there to play football, and we had no sort of preconceived notion or idea about who we were actually playing, but that's how it worked out, and fortunately many years later I think it's very much history at this stage.
It certainly is, and 1974 was a great year for Donegal as well. I mean, you had achieved great things that year as well, so it seems astonishing that playing for a proxy over in the United States could possibly be seen with such seriousness back home.
Well, you see, what led to it was I got to know John Kerry some years previous, because I had played in New York back in the 60s when I lived in Toronto, and I asked him if he would bring Donegal to New York if they won the Ulster Championship, which we did do, and he kept his word. But he didn't tell me that he was going to play the New York Championship final over the particular weekend that we were there. And that caused a lot of furore. If I had the chance again, more than Pauric, I wouldn't have played for Kerry that day against Donegal. But we were kind of frog marched into it. And the unfortunate thing then that Kerry won it, and I came home and I got the sack.
Jeez. And what was that conversation like when you were told that you were being sacked?
Well, it didn't come up in the county convention when I stood for a re-election, and I was voted out by a large margin too. I think it was 144 to 44
No
votes.
way.
So that was the end of my reign.
My God. What was your recollection of that moment? Brian McEniff, the hero who had played and managed Donegal to that historic glory in the early 70s, is getting his marching orders for a game not even played here.
Well, I would have to say, you know, back then people weren't maybe, from a county point of view, the idea of playing against or with Kerry against Donegal would have been seen as a major act of treason from a Donegal point of view, and you know, it was taken out of context to a certain extent, because the night before the actual game, a deputation from the Donegal club came to us in Gaelic Park and spoke to us about maybe playing with Donegal, but we couldn't, simply because O'Donnell had bought our tickets to come over. He'd given us a few dollars, which was important at that juncture as well, and there was no way out of it. If Donegal had invited us over, we would have been the first two men on the plane.
Yes. I don't mean to start things off on a negative. It's just interesting with the juxtaposition of Kerry and Donegal this weekend. If you rewind a couple of years prior to that, Brian, and being the player manager who does get Donegal over the line for the first time in Ulster in 1972, can you just take us back to the opportunity to actually manage a team as well as being a player? How did that come about?
Well, I had been a county minor team manager for 2 years, and we really hit rock bottom in December 1971. We went up to play Leitrim, who hadn't won a match for 18 months in Carrick and Shannon. not only they beat it, but they hammered us up in Carrick and Shannon. We sat down afterwards and we decided we'd go and get a manager. And I approached Mick Higgins, who I had known from the Ulster team. I was playing for Ulster for a couple of years. And I approached him. Now, Mick Higgins had read that I had managed the minor team. He says, "You know what you'll do? You manage it yourself." And he says, "I'll give you a hand." And all of a sudden, I found myself in as a player manager for Donegal. And we were very lucky that 13 of the team that were hammered by Leitrim went on to win the Ulster Championship for the first time the following year. They were a great set of players, though, I'd have to say. It wasn't that I worked miracles. But they were a very good set of players there. There were always good players in Donegal, but it was a great time, because we came from nowhere. We had to play Down in the first round, who were a nemesis for us. We hadn't beaten Down for 15 years. And we had them in Balleybofey in the first round. And Shane McGrannon from our own club here in Bundoran hung a goal just from a bad kick out by Dan McCartan, and we managed to keep that goal ahead the whole time. I remember Dan McCartan coming up then for a 50 to see could he manufacture a goal, and the ball came in, and our captain Frankie McPhee, who was a great pair of shoulders and a great pair of hands, caught the ball, and that was the game over for Down. Then we played Cavan in Irvinstown. I was in Ulster Council, and I got the match to Irvinstown because Clonus was a home venue for Cavan, and at half time we're down by 8 points, and I remember drizzling rain, and Cavan left us standing on the pitch, and some boys shouted in from the side, but sent out the jerseys. But in the second half, Joe Winston had one of those days, and I introduced a lad called Mickey Sweeney, whom I had on the minor team 2 years previous, and he set the world alight. He earned a lot of frees, and in the replay then we had to go to Clonus, and we hammered them in Clonus, and Sweeney had a great game that particular day, and then went on and beat Tyrone in the Ulster final. So that was the particular year, 72. It was a great breakthrough because we ran Offaly, who were All-Ireland champions, to the pin or the collar in the All-Ireland semi-final, and it surprised everyone. But that was our first big breakthrough in Donegal.
What were your memories of the idea of a player manager at that time, Pauric?
I would have to say we were delighted to see Brian coming in because he did put a structure on Donegal football that hadn't been there before. There's no question about that. We probably trained harder than we ever trained. In fact, he brought in a trainer, a guy, God rest him, called Austin Coughlin, who would have been an uncle of our current county chairperson, Mary Coughlin. Right. And Austin was a great character, a bit of a personality, and we worked extremely hard with him. Brian would have been involved in the training as well. The other thing he brought to Donegal football would have been a degree of self-belief, which wasn't in Donegal prior to his coming in as manager. I remember when I first went to the Donegal team as a young lad, the colour of the Down or the Cavan jerseys would nearly have beaten us because of the self-belief and the fact that we had a very poor record over the years in championship football. But it was great. He totally revitalised Donegal football, and the one thing that we were lacking was absolute self-belief, and he certainly, I think, his commercial awareness off the pitch was a factor as well. He did believe that things were very attainable, even to the rest of us mightn't have seen it that way. And I just briefly tell you, before the All-Ireland semi-final in 72 against Offaly, the Gaelic Games correspondent with the Irish Independent was the late John D. Hickey. He was a very good writer, but in his preview of the match before our All-Ireland semi-final, we were playing Offaly, who are the current All-Ireland champions, and Hickey suggested on the Friday in his preview of the game that the gates in Croke Park would be closed on Sunday at half-time to keep the crowd in. Yeah. Hopefully we're going to be so far in front, and ironically we went in at half-time leading Offaly in that semi-final, and which was totally unexpected, but we did that, and we were unfortunate to sell a very bad goal in the second half, which if we hadn't done, I believe we would have been playing Kerry in that year's All-Ireland final.
For you personally at that point, how far into your senior career were you? Because you had an unbelievably long minor career.
Well, I probably was 5 or 6 years, I would think. Okay. But I had been playing, and again, it was Brian who came up with the idea. I'd been playing centre half forward in the team, and I loved playing up there. But I think the reason I finished up at full back was Brian probably just stuck for a full back at that particular stage, and I had played a few times for the club, so he put me back there, and it worked okay.
But it was working at centre forward as well. If I'm not mistaken, you had a pretty good day out against Down in the Ulster quarter-final, and you were fairly free scoring.
I remember one year, at the risk of sounding extremely arrogant, I was a top scorer in Donegal the previous year before I went back full back.
Right.
And I loved playing in the forward line, but it worked okay. Brian was beside me at right half back, and we had a bit of a telepathy going, even with the kick-outs in those days, which was, I think, significant.
Your decision to move one of your forwards, your great scoring forwards, back to defence, was that a decision that was met with raised eyebrows, Brian?
Well, I suppose it was, but we both played for the great St. Joseph side, and at a stage when former St. Joseph fullback Bernard Brady, who was the Ulster fullback, was coming not to the end of his career, but he was qualified as a doctor, and then he went to Canada. A vacancy came for the club, and Pauric slotted in at fullback. He was a great kick out, which fullbacks had at the time, and he was a great man to pinpoint a kick out. You know, it seems to be a big deal at this stage, but he was doing it back in the 70s. So that were two reasons. Top of that, he had a great safe pair of hands at fullback, which were very, very important at the time.
For yourself, you talk about the modern storylines around kickouts. Another modern storyline, and that's been the case for 20-25 years really at this point, is the marauding wing-back, the scoring wing-back. I guess in the 1970s you were a scoring wing-back.
I was. I remember in the Ulster final that year we had a bad first half against Tyrone. It was a wet day, and there was a fire in the kitchen in the hotel, so I was up early that day and I wasn't feeling that good. And I came in at half time having had a poor enough first half, and I had a hot shower followed by a cold shower and a change of jersey. And I went out in the second half, and we were finding it hard to pull back the 5-point lead from Tyrone, but I remember kicking point, and then Seamus Boner kicked a high ball in, and the poor Tyrone goalkeeper lost it just under the crossbar, which levelled us. And I remember getting the kick out and going up and scoring a point. And I remember 3 uncles of mine from Tyrone, mad football people, including one of them, a priest. And I used some soldiers' talk of them as soon as I come back after getting that point. But we went on to win by 5, and that was a good Donegal side, though.
Yeah.
You know, we had the players at the time, and that was reflected when we went in against Offaly in the All-Ireland semi-final.
How much did that transform the landscape and the way in which Donegal football was actually viewed at that point, Pauric?
I would have to say it was seriously significant. There's no doubt at all about that, because all of a sudden we realised that, you know, we weren't that far away. And before that, as I said, there was a serious deficit of confidence with a lot of our players. The degree of self-belief, I think, was very, very relevant. And I would also go so far as to say that even with Sunday coming up, which we're immensely looking forward to, we nearly feel a part of Donegal success this year because of, you know, to win our first Ulster title was a huge achievement, and it was something that wasn't remotely conceived before that year. Brian said, actually, and I reflected on it last Sunday after watching the hurling final, we lost to Leitrim in a league game some months before that, and with all due respect to Leitrim, they were better than us that day and beat us convincingly, but I was nearly ashamed. We all were getting out of the car that Sunday evening coming back from Carrick and Shannon, and you know, I felt there was a parallel between that and what happened the Cork hurlers last Sunday. I said to myself, I had an indication of how they felt because we felt so dreadful having lost in Carrick and Shannon that day, and it possibly was the I suppose the incentive, or it incentivised us to work harder, and Brian certainly insisted that we did work very hard. And Donegal teams probably never were at the level of fitness which was required even back then. And you know, I was just saying to somebody recently that Brian would have called for me in Ballyshannon on the way to Balleybofey to train maybe on a Tuesday night, a Thursday night. If we didn't have a session on Saturday, we had a match on Sunday. So even back then, and it's a long time ago, we did a fair bit of work. We worked hard on our game, and it did enhance our prospects of making some progress. I also felt that we possibly would have been very close to winning an All-Ireland in those years. We had one forward from Ballyshannon, a good friend of Brian and mine called Michael McGlynn, and he was an exceptional player. He'd been the leading scorer, I think, for a year or two in Ireland at that time. He suffered bad knee injuries when modern medicine wasn't near as relevant as it is now. Right. And we lost him. He could have been the missing link in a Donegal team that possibly could have been good enough to go the whole way.
Can I just rewind a small bit for you to tell us a little bit about your minor career? It's an astonishing amount of time that you spent playing at the under-18 grade.
Well, I think there's two ways of explaining that. One was I was tall for my age, and that didn't do any harm. And the other thing was, I remember we met a great Derry team who had won an All-Ireland minor championship during those years, and we got quite a hammering from them. But at school in Ballyshannon, we had a Christian Brothers school, which was really a real positive for us because you didn't have lunch, you went out and kicked football. And the De La Salle brothers played a serious role in helping us to develop as footballers. I remember back then we had one brother, Brother Raviel, and he was so ahead of his time that if you were right-footed, he made you wear a slipper on your right foot and a boot on your left foot to enhance your kicking ability. And that was unheard of in those times. It was pretty slick, to be fair to him, you know. But they were great, and playing with De La Salle, we had a reasonable colleges team at that stage, and possibly that helped us as well. But just talking about 72 is ironic, and I think it's an indication of the comradeship that exists in Gaelic games. Only last Saturday I was in the golf club in Bundoran here, and I met Joe McMahon, the former Tyrone All-Ireland winner, and we sat and had a quick cup of tea, and he said to me, by the way, he said, in 72, do you know who was marking my father? And I said, I do. Brian was marking Paddy McMahon, Joe's father, in that Ulster final, and did a good job on Paddy as well. But it's just another indication of the extreme, I suppose, comradeship, friendship, loyalty, which makes Gaelic football or Gaelic games the unique organisation that it is.
Certainly. I think, Brian, he's probably being a little bit, I guess, not giving himself full credit here by talking about his underage career. 5 years at minor, Pauric McShea played. He must have been the talk of the town.
Oh, he was an unbelievably good underage player. In fact, he was playing minor when he made his debut for Donegal against Cavan in an Ulster Championship in '65. I was living in Canada, and I happened to be home on holidays, and I was amazed at how he had gained prowess in the short time that I was away. And that day he took Tom Maguire to the Cleaners, who was the Ulster centre half back. So I was very pleased. Now, what we forgot to mention there is that an amalgamation of Bundoran and Ballyshannon, which resulted because of the De La Salle, they started at minors and they joined because of lack of numbers, and that militated to become St Joseph's, who went on to win 8 Donegal senior championships and 4 Ulster clubs and an All-Ireland club championship. And that's where a lot of that success came from. In fact, in 72, in the All-Ireland semi-final, there were 6 St Joseph's men playing on the team, and that brought a self-belief into the Donegal team as well.
That geographical thing is really interesting. I do want to come back to that in a moment, but by the same token, I'd like to kind of get you to talk about Brian here a little bit in terms of what happened afterwards. We've gone from 74 back to 72. It'll be the first of 4 decades where Brian McEniff would manage the Donegal team. What for you is Brian McEniff's greatest achievement?
I suppose, he's achieved a lot both off the pitch and on the pitch. Commercially, he's been extremely successful, and his family have followed in his footsteps from that point of view, which is great. It's lovely to see. But the one thing that I would have to say about him, and I have a lot of friends in Gaelic games, but he's unique insofar as his love of football is quite incredible. And maybe one story I'll tell you might enhance that. A couple of years ago, Brian had 1 or 2 stents fitted because he'd been a wee bit off colour. And the evening that he went to hospital to get the stents, that he got the pain in the chest, he'd spent maybe 2 hours that day on a cold winter's day at the local super value shop selling Bundoran lotto tickets. I said to him at the time, you're going to have to give up this crack because there are lots of younger people in the club who might take up the baton. But, Cody, his wife, who's a great support, a fabulous support of Brian and everything that he ever did. When it came to running the hotels and that, Cody never was found wanting. She was just an absolute brick, I would have to say. But his love of football is such that he rang me one Sunday morning quite recently, very, very early, and he said to me, what time were we going to Croke Park? At that stage I was still half asleep, but he was like a child anticipating going to Dublin for the day. And I would have to say, collectively, we both are so looking forward to next Sunday. It's unbelievable. We really are. But the biggest thing is the fact that he's chairman of the club. He managed Donegal on 5 different occasions. He was county chairman in Donegal as well. So I don't know, I've never met anybody in my life, and I can say this without fear of contradiction, who has such an amazing love affair with Gaelic games as Brian has. And, we went to a match recently and we didn't have a pass for the car park in Clonus, and he was sitting in the front of his brother-in-law, Philip McGlynn's car. Philip's, by the way, a great driver whom we enjoy travelling with from time to time. But I said to him when we were going in, I said, I must get a photograph of you before you die, because everywhere we stopped, and guards stopped us and stewards stopped us, they looked in and they spotted him. Go ahead. So I'm going to get a photograph and put it up on the front of my windscreen to make sure that I'm okay going forward. But no, it's his desire, his commitment, his love of all things Gaelic, which really have made him stand out. And, everywhere you go, even on All-Ireland final day or semi-final day, the amount of people who seem to enjoy having a bit of crack with him. He's unique. He's just a unique football person.
For sure. It's amazing to hear all that, Brian. For you, do you have a moment from your career that really stands out or that peaks its head above the rest in terms of the things that give you pride?
Well, I suppose you could say the success in 1992, but the success in 72 by standards back then was just equally as important to us in Donegal, because we were never heard tell of.
Yeah.
We were kind of a joke, for want of a better word, and it was nice to see that, because I went to boarding school in Monaghan, and my dad was Monaghan, but we're in Clogher Diocese, and it was the Diocesan College. And at that stage, Monaghan weren't that big, but they had won championships, which we had never done in Donegal. So, would be delighted when the Ulster team was have a trial before Christmas and selecting the Ulster Railway Cup team, that Donegal would get one player on it, and I'd be walking tall when we'd have one player on the team, and that was, how people viewed Donegal at the time, was, as Pauric was saying there, that the down jerseys or the Cavan jerseys just would frighten the life out of the boys, and that's the way it was. We hadn't won 2 Ulster championship matches ever till 1972 to get to an Ulster final, or to 63 was the first time we got to it. And I remember being in Canada at the time and feel very sad, because I would have felt it would have been in the panel that particular day, but we got an awful beaten by that down team of the 60s. And it was very sad for me, because I had a bet of $20 with a man from Laois. And what was worse still, we had a very good minor team coming, which was the source of success for Donegal and St. Joseph's. And they were beaten with a late goal by Down as well, and so I was very sad about the minors particularly. But we went on from that. In '66 we were back in the Ulster final, and it was the first game was televised, and an over-the-top Down team beat us in a bad Ulster final, 8 points to 6. And I remember I had just come back from Canada, and that time there was only 6 subs, and I'd be lucky enough to be among the subs and get in for about the last 7 or 8 minutes, and coming home, and my mother says, "How did you get home?" Because Cecil King from the local Democrat had an old banger of America, and I came out after the game was over, and I jumped into the back seat and I fell asleep, and when I woke up we were in Ballyshannon. And I came into work for my mother. She says, "Where are you coming from?" I says, "I'm coming from Clonus. We hadn't a good day, so we got back to work and put it behind us." But however, St. Joseph bid up that year. We went on to win the Donegal Championship, and we won the first ever Ulster Championship that year in '66, Ulster Club.
It feels, I'm sure, like a long wait before 1972 happens, but I'm sure in many ways the 20 years thereafter feels like the longest wait of all, because you get that sense of Croke Park, you get those couple of semi-final experiences, and then actually having the experience of winning an All-Ireland, being there on All-Ireland final day in '92. That must have been 20 long years, Brian.
Well, it was, but what happened during that time was, after '74, as I told you, I was voted out, sacked. Yeah. And then I came back for a year and a half, and I got my papers again. I got sacked. So then back then in the early 80s, and won Ulster Championship in 83, and then the following year I got sacked again. So I was out of contention until 1989, 90, and I went back and we won an Ulster Championship in 90, and then we won the All-Ireland in 92. So I didn't have a run of 20 years because it was interfered with, We're in the south of the county, and there was always this division that used to happen because of the success of St. Joseph's, that it was very hard to keep your place, Like I was on the Ulster Council for Donegal for some years, and once I got voted out of that, for no particular reason other than the fact I was in the south of the county, which was rather sad. But thankfully that's behind us.
Right. Were you ever tempted to just throw in the towel altogether when it comes to the politics of Donegal GAA back then?
Not the nature of the man. If a graph of Donegal, which knows no bounds, as Pauric would tell you. We love going off to support Donegal with Philip McGlynn driving us, and Pauric and myself. We have great days travelling, and we really enjoy our matches, and we enjoy the company, and Philip's a great driver. And the only thing is, he wants to drive straight back after the match. We would like to stop at McDonald's for a burger, but he keeps driving.
We've been chatting to Tipperary players for the last couple of days about the day 1, day 2, day 3 of the celebrations since Sunday. The celebrations from 1992 have gone down in history really as probably the most prolonged celebration of any county, and rightly so. That must have been some of the sweetest few months of your life.
Unreal time for Donegal. It went on and on and on and on. It went on for 9 months, I would say. And I actually finished up going back to Canada to be part of the celebrations over there, because I was deeply involved for the 4 years in the GAO over there in Toronto. But there was parties every night, and you just had to make yourself available, and you didn't mind because it was Donegal people you're going down to entertain with and enjoy the fruits of the success. But it would have cost us the following year, though, because we didn't do as well as we might the following year. But we were back again the year after that. So, and it's been all fairly decent since that. In Donegal, we're recognised as one of the top clubs in the province, and maybe one of the top clubs in the country.
For sure. What are your memories of 1992, Pauric?
I suppose before the final, Dublin were pretty hot favourites to win that game, and the performance of Donegal that day was exceptional. They played superb football, particularly in the second half. I suppose I didn't, to be honest about it, sometimes I can be a bit too realistic, and I didn't really expect us to win. I was worried going to Croke Park that day, and we had played with Paddy Cullen a few years earlier in San Francisco. He was the goalkeeper in our team, and Paddy was managing Dublin that day. And I remember in the morning of the match, Brian had asked me to go into Croke Park early and have a look at the pitch and a few other bits and pieces, which I did. But I saw the Dublin team coming in with their resplendent Arnott's blazers on them, and I then saw Brian leading his troops in, many of them with wee white worried faces on them, the colour of your shirt. And I said, this doesn't look great. I was worried. But after a niffy start, Donegal they were quite excellent, to be honest with you. And it's something, there's only, I think, Eoin, you will accept that there's only one first. Winning the first All-Ireland can never be. It'll be magnificent if we can do it on Sunday next, but the first is very, very special. And it was something I think that all Donegal people, including myself, who had played for a good few years with them, thought was a distant objective, but not really a genuine objective. And again, like I said, one of his great assets as a manager was his ability to instill confidence and self-belief in players, which is hugely important. And equally, next Sunday, McGuinness has a job as well to get our lads' heads right for the Kerry challenge. But the belief, the confidence and the desire that they showed that day was something I will never forget. It was one of Donegal's best ever performances, and I would have to say, obviously, it was one of the happiest days of my life to see us winning it. It was a huge achievement.
That belief piece, which you've mentioned a couple of times, is obviously the cornerstone of what happens in 92. Brian, it's got so many hallmarks to what Jim McGuinness has done over the course of his 2 stints in terms of taking a bunch of players and making them believe. What was your secret to instilling that sense of belief in a bunch of players who maybe weren't always 100% thinking they could win, Sam.
Strange enough, I learned a bit about coaching when I played soccer, believe it or not, in Canada, and there was a Hungarian man from the 54 team coaching us called Steki Ostap. Don't ask me how to spell it. Right. But he was a marvellous coach, and I would have learned a great deal from him. But I wanted to divert for a thing that took place. I was sitting on the 50-yard line and Hogan stand there at the last trade. We were up there. And Sean Furter, who was an ex-Donegal footballer, and his daughter, who's mad GA Donegal supporter, she's a dub, came over with an envelope, and I opened up the envelope. Sean Furter was a Garda sergeant inspector back in 1992, and I asked him to go and spy on the Dublin training. And there was a 3-page letter that she gave me a copy of. And it's so well written, I'll show you afterwards if I can find it now. I know I have it there. And I read it, and if you saw how meticulous his breakdown of the Dublin training and what we had to watch for, and the Route 1 ball into Vinnie Murphy and various other things to tack up one wing as distinct from another. He done a great job.
Amazing.
In his spying, Sean Furter, and I just would like to pass on my very best to him.
Yeah. Sorry, when did you get that?
I only got it the last day I was in Croke Park from his daughter.
The last day this year?
Yeah, this year, just a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, I thought you meant you said you got it the day of the game in 1992.
No, it was dressed 1992. This was done in August 1992, where he went to spy on the Dublin training to see what they were at and have us prepared for whatever. And of course, they had only the one tactic: get the ball into Vinnie Murphy, who was nearly impossible to mark. He was so strong on the upper body, you think he had no neck.
Yeah.
And no matter how you go at it, it's like Clifford on Sunday, you have to allow for the fact that Clifford's going to get a fair bit of ball, and we had to prepare for that with Vinnie Murphy, and we had a small full-back, Matt Gallagher, but he coped manfully, and in fact, Matt very rarely touched the ball in the All-Ireland that year, but he managed to contain Murphy fairly well.
Right. That's fascinating. So you obviously got the information from him verbally, and then you
Further wrote it. I'll get the letter. I'll show you afterwards the letter that I got.
Brilliant. And how did he go about doing his piece of espionage? Was he up a tree?
Well, no, he wasn't. He was I'd say at that stage he was an inspector, or maybe even a superintendent. He would go over to the training.
Right.
And I suppose they had Parnell Park. There was no such thing as spying at that time, but we were ahead of our time. Counter-espionage. But if you'll see, the breakdown is meticulous.
Yeah,
what
right.
I came up with by way of preparation for the Dublin match. So we knew all about them and their tactics and what they were going to do, and we prepared consequently for that.
I suspect, Brian, when we go travelling around the county today, Jim McGuinness is going to be a name that pops up, and we're going to be so fascinated to get every person's insight on him. Jim McGuinness, the player, is somebody that you had to mould, and Jim McGuinness, the man, is somebody that you had to help along in life before he achieved great things in '92 as a player. And look, we all know what he's done as a manager since then.
Well, Jim played county minor, and I had seen him play in county minor. Bundoran played Glenties in the county final in the junior championship in 1990. And I spotted himself and another lad called John Gildare, who were both minors that particular time. And I called Jim McGuinness into a training session in Ballyshannon in January 1991. Now, he played well that day, and my own son was on the trial too, and he set him up for a goal. So after the match, I went to talk to him. He said he was going to America. So I told him I was going to have him in the panel, so he came in, and the rest is history. Was there in 92. Blooded him in the first round of the Ulster Championship in 93, and what happened? Because he got a very bad injury. So he missed 93, and we were back in the Ulster final. We could have done with him. And then I went away in 94, and he didn't seem to hit it with the team manager or whatever there afterwards, but he was in limbo land for some times. But I think he came and went to the States, and then he had an upset for going to the States one time, one journey. Where there was a car accident, his brother was killed, which was very, very sad. Jim's a very fine boy, and is very skilled and well educated in it. And then he had a couple of years at the soccer, from which he obviously learned a great deal about motivation and tactics and various things like that there. But I have a great belief in him. I think he's probably the most skilled. Well, he's definitely the most skilled manager in the country at the moment.
Yeah, very hard to argue with that. one of the other things that I've been hearing during the week, Pauric, really is that, preparing to come up here, is that Donegal is very much a county that's united under Jim. And obviously we've heard your stories of how maybe there was political machinations that weren't always the easiest things to deal with when you were playing. It does feel that Jim McGuinness has got the whole county on board, even a couple of lads playing from Inishowen, which would be traditionally soccer strongholds. It is a county-wide thing and a county-wide movement behind McGuinness.
I think, Owen, that's a very, very relevant point, because we were just saying, coming from a match recently, that an awful lot of the people from the south of the county who still go to support Donegal were diluted in relation to numbers by the number of people from the Inishowen Peninsula who are now following Donegal. We have a very good player, Conor O'Donnell, from that area, and I believe that his involvement, his presence on the team, is a factor in the number of people from Inishowen going. But I was chatting Mary Coughlin, our chairperson, recently, and she said one of the great spin-offs from this run that Donegal are having currently will be in years to come, when you see the number of players from that area that will eventually play with Donegal. And when we were playing, it's very much predominantly a hurling area, and very few lads from Inishowen have ever, you could count on one hand the number of who have represented the county, but that is a major plus. But the other thing, and I think it's very relevant in relation to Sunday's game, is that Donegal in the campaign this year have, and indeed last year in the Ulster Championship, had some difficult games. They were 4 points behind Armagh in the dying moments of the Ulster final last year, and the crowd that got behind Donegal on that occasion was quite unique. And now you hear the sounds ringing out, Donegal, Donegal. And I really believe it's nearly as good as a 16th man to them, because if you're out there on the pitch and you see what it means to the people who are paying their way to be in Dublin or in Clonus or whatever, and the desire they have for success, I think it is nearly it comes through to the extent that it gives the team a lift, a serious lift. And I definitely believe that currently Donegal probably have the best supporter. Traditionally, Ulster have great supporting counties. Armagh, Tyrone are exceptional. But the Donegal support this year deserve extreme credit for their vocal support of the team, which when we were in dire straits in the last couple of years, they came through in a big way, and it is a material lift, there's no question about that.
Definitely, you can feel the momentum in Croke Park as the summer develops behind Donegal as well. Just one other thing I wanted to ask you about with regards to Jim McGuinness, Brian. I guess your own work in terms of administration and in terms of management in the 21st century is as fascinating as your work in the 20th century. Going back into manage for 2003 is an incredible story in and of itself. But if you fast forward to Jim McGuinness actually getting his first gig with Donegal GAA, you had a big hand to play in persuading the county board that this man might be something special.
Well, he stood twice, and the first time he stood, he came here to the house and he sat in that kitchen inside and put stuff up on the wall, and I'm quite amazed. Then he applied for the job, and for reasons best known to those people that selected, that they didn't give him a look in. So he applied again, and he was turned down a second time. So a new county chairman came in, Sean Kelly, and there was a vacancy at under 21, and Sean asked me to appoint a man. Now, there was 3 applicants for the job, but Jim went in, all going blazing, and went to an All-Ireland final, but for Murphy, bad strike, which is unlike Murphy, and hit the crossbar over the bar. We had Dublin beat in the under 21, and that was his first venture in. And even at that, Jim would have thought maybe that he wouldn't stand again. You know, he was hurt, and rightly so, that about not getting the job. But there was no one else in for the job, and I was delighted to be fit to say to him, "Go ahead, Jim," and the rest is history. Now, he didn't set the world alight the first year with the negative games that he played, and particularly the Dublin match, the All-Ireland semi-final. It was terrible that day. But that's the way Jim planned for it, but he's doing a much more expansive job, and now we have Murphy as well. And Murphy is a very special talent, so he is, as Kerry will find out on Sunday.
You're a man who's gone back for multiple stints as a manager yourself. Jim McGuinness, Michael Murphy, both in stints number 2. There's something about the Donegal greats that just need a little bit of a break once in a while to come back and do it all over again.
Without a doubt, like Murphy went out after the Ulster final there against Derry a couple of years ago, and Derry came from nowhere to beat us, and we were all very sick that day, and he didn't come back. But Jim gave him the opportunity this year, and if we had him last year, we would have won an All-Ireland. There's no doubt about that. But he's back, and he's fit and trim, and he's all over the pitch. Sometimes I'm worried when I see him back in defence that he should be keeping his energy, because he's so talented. And I tell you, a great talent he has to bring players into the game. He's so totally unselfish on the ball, but he has great capacity to see the opportunity. Like the goal there that we got the last day was a cracker from the midfielder. He just set him up. It was a lovely weighted pass. And of course, no better man than the midfielder, the striker to the net. But he's a great talent to have, and it's great for Jim that he has him back, and long may continue. And I know he's just turned 36, but hopefully he'll go on forever.
Yeah, it will be great for everybody if that did actually end up happening. Pauric, just in terms of your own relationship, you're obviously very close friends. You've alluded to the fact that you go to games together and all of that. Is this going back many, many years? Whenever Brian's not been involved in teams, the two of you would go along as supporters together?
Oh yeah, certainly. I think it's a way of life, really. There's no question about that, and I suppose we enjoy each other's company as well, obviously. But we both, I think, have the same philosophy as to how Gaelic football should be played, and this year I believe would be. Any year that you are in an All-Ireland final is special. To win it is unique. But this year, because I think of the quality of the championship, with the new rules being quite superb, and Jim Gavin and his team did a fabulous job in that area, it would be a great year to win All-Ireland, because there have been some wonderful matches this year. There's no question about that. And going back to, we talk football very, very regularly. On the phone as well as off the phone, but we just, I suppose, we go back a very, very long time, and I don't know if we've ever had a crossword.
Really?
Yeah,
it's a strong friendship.
Maybe one or two when it came to when I was sort of remotely involved with Brian in the management of the team. There were a few times we would have had differences of opinion, but they didn't last very long.
What years were you involved?
I was. Brian has a photographic memory.
Right.
I was on the periphery in '92, and then later on I was involved for a couple of years as well.
Right, very good. So '92, you were involved then. I mean, you were part of this.
I wasn't an official member of the backroom team, but on the day of the All Ireland, he did ask me to be on the sideline with a walkie-talkie to the boys across the far side of the pitch.
Right.
But we didn't have to do very much, because Donegal, as I said, after a very iffy start, that they performed well, and we had no major input into what was taking place on the pitch. The boys did play well.
I must say, I was watching a bit of the 1972 Ulster final last night. There's some archive footage online, and you do get a fair distance on the kickouts, to be fair, when you do step back. So Sean Patton is merely the next Pauric McShea. I haven't seen too many people refer him to by his correct title.
I would have to say Patton is unique.
Yeah.
His kicking is quite superb. I mean, he's knocking them in on top of the half-forward line. And we got a score recently in Clonus, and it came directly, I think, 2 kicks, Patton to Murphy and over the bar. Yeah. That doesn't happen. And, when we were playing the old football, it was a lot heavier as well. And it was leather and was wet and got heavy, but we moved it okay.
Yeah, not too bad. I must ask you by how much Donegal are going to win at the weekend. I am assuming you're both predicting a Donegal win, but feel free to correct me.
I would have to say I'm hoping, and I see it as a unique All-Ireland final insofar as Donegal will have our best ever player playing on Sunday, Michael Murphy. For Kerry to be talking about David Clifford being the best, when you think of the Kerry players over the years, the Jack O'Shea's, the Dara O'Shea's, the Mikey Sheehy's, even Paddy, they've had some unique footballers. And this young man, at his age, being considered the king of the kingdom, for want of a better way of putting it, is a serious accolade. And it doesn't seem to affect him in any way from a pressure point of view. And he's so good that I would have to say, I hope not on Sunday, but some of the scores he actually kicks, even if he's putting a dagger through your heart, you have to admire him. He's an incredible player. And if we do a damage limitation job on David Clifford on Sunday, I think we'll be very well there.
Very good. Brian, what are you thinking? What is your prediction?
I'm very confident that we will win. I think the sort of game that Jim has them playing, the speed and the confidence the boys have on the ball. They're great ball players, and we can score from anywhere. I think that's what will bring us through. Kerry are playing a kind of more traditional and very depending on the Clifford brothers. And I think Jim will have a plan to nullify that. There's no way that you can totally nullify David Clifford, because he's going to score, no matter how you play him, he's going to score 6-7 points. And maybe a goal as well if he gets the space. But I do believe that Donegal are playing a type of game, the level of fitness that I've never seen in a county team before. And I think that's what will probably pull them through on Sunday.
Brian, you might give us a tune in the piano in just a moment. Pauric has already said that unless Donegal win on Sunday, he won't be singing for us. What sort of singing voice are you missing out on here, Brian?
Well, I don't sing either, so that makes two of us in the same boat. But I want to play it for a good friend of mine. I'm going to play not a Donegal tune this time, because I played 2 Donegal tunes the last time I done this. And I'm going to play it for Sean Boyle and a very good friend. I'm going to play a tune called Bull of Vogue. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I don't play piano much.
Right, we have driven up to the north of Donegal. We're in Gweedore. We're in Torna Leo with the great
Taverna Leo.
Taverna Leo.
Yeah.
It depends on the type of Gaeilge you have, I suppose.
I suppose it does, yeah, it does.
I'm not too versed on Donegal Gaeilge, and we might actually learn a little bit more about that with the great Moya Brennan. Donegal Person of the Year 2023, I think, is your official title at this stage.
It is, yeah. We're very proud of it, Fantastic. We had an amazing time. I had an amazing year, but I was opening everything from, festivals all over the county to the lifeguard out in Arnmore, and you name it. It was great. It's lovely to be part of things. But I'm very much, a Donegal person. I've lived in Dublin when I got married and lived in Dublin for 30 years. And after that, I thought it's time to come back to Donegal. And we'd always, I had a wee house beside my parents anyway, and now it's extended, and it's, I love it.
Was that always the plan? Or once you got out of Donegal, you were thinking to yourself, I'm never looking back, and it'll just be a little holiday destination for me?
Oh, no, never. I always loved coming back to Donegal, and coming to the pub here and the sing-songs and everything, But just Donegal itself, it's just beautiful. It's just got everything. The mountains, the beaches for miles, and, the highest cliffs in Europe, Slievely, and, so it's it's just a fantastic place. So my heart never left it, really.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to us about where we are now geographically, because Gweedore is a fairly large place. It doesn't always have a defined area or a defined village centre or whatever the case may be. So explain our environment here.
It's a huge townland area, and it's the most rural townland in, I think, the whole of Ireland. There's like 5,000, 6,000 people, and it's like all spread out. So like when you come looking for Gweedore, you kind of have to, it's upper door, middle door, lower door, Bunbeg, it's just all the whole area. And I love it for that. I think it's great. So it's not like a village or such. If you're looking for a village, you might get a little bit of that down Bunbeg and Derrybeg, but it's very much just a townland area. So northwest, the very northwest corner of Donegal, and it's just a beautiful area.
It really is absolutely stunning. Even on a day like today when it's overcast and you can't really see too far into the distance, there's an atmosphere about the place that comes with a non-clear day, which is pretty magnificent. It's one of the most beautiful places in the world, never mind Ireland.
Well, and it's been said in National Geographic and Lonely Planets and things like that. So when I travel abroad, like when I've travelled all around the world with Clannad and that, and they've often said to me, the sound of Clannad, where did the sound come from and that? And I often say to them, come to Donegal and you'll feel that earthiness. There's an earthiness here, and we've allowed that to become part of our music. And I've met people afterwards said, you're right, there is an atmosphere here, and it's there, and we've used it musically, and we'll use it probably on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'd imagine there is this sort of vague concept that people who aren't from Ireland or who've never been to Ireland, they get from listening to Clannad. They don't understand maybe what it is, or they have kind of a picture of what it might be. And I'd imagine this has become something of a pilgrimage for Clannad fans.
This pub particularly, this tavern, is very much, you get people coming from all over. I mean, people have come from, the likes of course, all over Europe, but from Japan and from Asia, from South America. There was a guy here recently from Chile, and you kind of go, they just, it is a bit of a pilgrimage, and it's really nice ourselves, and my sister Enya as well is very much, it was the stage he was up on as well. Dad had us all up. I'm the eldest of 9, and he dragged us all up on stage, singing, when anybody was in, he sort of said, where's the family, get them up on stage, and we sort of, reluctantly, dragged ourselves up on stage, but I thank him for it.
Definitely. And I think a lot of music fans thank him for it as well. So Taverna, Leo, this is not just any old pub, as people may already guess from some of the nuggets you've already given. This is a significant part of your own family history and a significant part of your career. Can you tell us a little bit more about this place?
Well, it's like where my dad had a show band, and that went kind of the beginning of the 1960s, and he was playing just around locally and at weddings and things, and himself and his wife with 8 kids and one on the way decided to open a bar. God love them, but they must have been very brave. And it was kind of, it was very new to open a place like this, because there's another pub across the way and there were some old fellas over there. And the story is that they were looking at this place being rebuilt and said, what's happening over there? And they said, it's a young family, very, very, a large young family. And they're opening a singing lounge, which was kind of unheard of. And you're talking about the late 60s. And they said, and where are the people going to come from, And it was really funny, that story was told when we had a 50th anniversary here in a big tent out the back. And there were people there from Russia, from Japan, from Brazil, from, all over Europe and that. And you kind of think, yeah, where are the people coming from? They just, when Dad opened this place, he's a musician himself, used to bring us up on stage, and then we kind of used to get up together and sing, whether it was Beatles songs and Beach Boys songs and Joni Mitchell songs, but always included the Gaelic songs. And we sort of, it became a gradual thing during our holiday time from school. When the school closed, he'd get us up and do a wee spot before he get on. And the local sergeant came in one day and he said, you know, Leo, he said, there's a festival, there's a folk festival in Letterkenny. You should enter your family for it. And Dad showed us the entry form, and we said we wouldn't be good enough or whatever, and we left it there. And I think the day before it was due to go in, somebody found it, and we said, look, let's put our name down anyway. And we didn't have a name, and my grandfather was in the corner, and he was saying, you know, what about Clan Asthor, which means clan from door. We were from kind of upper door. And we said, that's a bit awkward. And he said, well, take the A and the D, stick it onto Clan, and so that'll, you know.
Oh, no way.
And we said, yeah, that'll do us for a while.
Yeah.
So here we are, 55 years later, you know.
Still coming up with a better name.
And we entered and we won the competition. And the prize was to make an album. And we were completely naive. It took us 3 years to get around to doing that, you know. But yeah. That's how it kind of gradually started. We were still at school. I was at boarding school in Sligo, and you know,
right.
And we sort of just people started coming and listening to us, and then there was a German couple that came and heard our first album, our only album at the time, and said, "Would you be interested in going for a 30 dates, you know, stint in Germany, in the Stadthalles in Germany?" You know, with a group of other, it was an Irish folk festival, you know, travelling Irish folk festival. And we kind of said, and we get paid, and we said, saying, this is fantastic. So we went to that, and the last gig was in the Berlin Philharmonic Hall, and we got a standing ovation for our half-an-hour show, and went into the dressing room. And we said, well, we go professional and see what happens. So everything was kind of, you know, if you feel Donegal, everything is quite relaxed here, Donegal. We get things done, but if we're kind of a laid back kind of, you know, sure, tomorrow's another day kind of thing.
Is that the truth? Because I did often wonder that there's definitely like a languid style about Donegal people, which I really love. Like, I mean, there's a picture of Eamon McGee up there in your photo frame, who we have on the show the whole time. Yeah. And like, if you use him as the embodiment of Gweedore, it's a very relaxed sort of idea of what people are here. But deeply talented, deeply hardworking is also another thing you'd get from speaking to him very, very briefly even. And also there's a sense of inspiration. Like Eamon is a massive collector of comic books, for example, and it's like such an interesting tidbit that you'd have that's unusual about a Gaelic footballer. So that's kind of in keeping with this part of the world.
I think, you know, and that's where our career was as Clannad. We just took it as it came. We weren't kind of in a mad rush. We just enjoyed what we were doing, and, you know, and got involved in doing it rather than thinking, well, let's be famous and make lots of money. Yes. We were kind of enjoying doing the music side of it. And I think that stands to why we just finished a world tour last year. And I think that, it lasted that long for the simple reason that we were genuinely in it because we loved it. And so there wasn't this mad rush, you know, it was kind of, you know, yeah, we are a bit laid back, but getting things done.
Getting things done. And it does strike me as well that, from what you've told me there, that your father was well aware of the talent that he had amongst his children. And I'd say it wasn't just, you know, something for you to do out there in the other room. He really sensed that there was an opportunity for you as a family and as a band to go on to do special things.
He just loved music himself. And I don't know whether he saw, you know, huge potential in us. He loved the fact that we performed. We kind of, you know, just growing up playing with them, and you know, the boys got interested in the instrumentation that he had in his show band and everything, because they were lying around the house, the drums and the guitars and things like that. And that's why Clannad were more, rather than the traditional instrumentation, because that wasn't in our family. And if you didn't have it in your family, that era, you know, in the 1960s, you didn't learn it very well, because they didn't have the great schools now they have, the Colta schools and the Crannogs and everything around for young kids to learn. So we just took up the instrumentation that was available to us. But being Gaelic speakers, that was there for us, and we had all the Gaelic songs that we grew up with and everything. So the fusion was between these kind of instruments and the Gaelic language and the, you know, and the songs. And sure, you know, people used to laugh at us up here singing in Gaelic because it was a real country and western kind of area as well, Donegal is, and they thought nobody would be interested in the Gaelic language. Because you have to remember the late 60s and the early 70s, when I'd go to Dublin, people would say, don't talk Irish to me now when we go to Dublin, because it wasn't that they were ashamed of it, it was just kind of regarded as being a poor man's language.
Right.
And it was kind of hick and, you know, and culty, and so it was kind of, but we still loved the Gaelic songs, and that's what we had as far as original kind of songs, and we just, so it was a very slow growth for us, because for the simple reason that, you know, we couldn't get a gig in Ireland because of the Gaelic songs, but we were offered tours in Europe and that, and they didn't mind that. But, you know, the fact that Harry's Game, which is a Gaelic song, was the first, you know, our first international hit, was sweet, very sweet, because it was just like, it's something we believed in, you know what I mean? And that was great. And my dad, it wasn't ambition in sort of way that he was pushing us on stage. He just loved music, and that was his soul, his own thing, you know. And, you know, I was kind of a music teacher at the time. Kieran was doing music, Paul. You know, we sort of just became gradually involved in playing together, and it became a natural thing, really, you know.
I do want to continue on this story, but just as an aside, it's quite amazing from this vantage point to consider Irish as a language to be uncool, because today it's very much cool. The opposite, right?
I mean, like take Kneecap for instance, you know, and they're, you know, rapping away in Irish. It's amazing, and I find it absolutely wonderful. I mean, it makes my heart sing to think that, you know, how much it's had advanced to the time that we were kind of laughed at, and told that, you know, from very reputable people that would have said to us, you know, you have a lovely sound, but you won't get anywhere with the, you know, singing in Irish, you know, in Gaelic. And but we didn't listen to them, thank God. And you know, but that was us. We always did what we wanted to do, and you know, and that was we stuck with it.
Because that's as important a part of being from here as the earthiness that comes through your sound is the language. I mean, Gweedore is where we are. It is a huge part of your identity, representing this part of Donegal, not just Donegal as a whole.
Oh, definitely, absolutely, and you know. Anything like that around here with the Gaelic language and football and things like that are so very important in the area. You know, my own nephew there, he's a game today actually.
Right.
I forget what game it is, but it's a final out the way. I do forget.
Yeah, somewhere out the way, yeah.
But like, you know, everybody gets involved and with the community. It's a community place as well, you know, in that sort of way. And everybody's kind of behind you.
You have the green and gold colours on you
definitely,
today.
Yeah. I wasn't going to wear a jumper, you know, a Donegal jumper, but I was definitely going to wear the colours.
What sort of level of fanaticism will you approach Sunday with now, Moya?
Well, would you believe I was at the first time, the very first time Donegal were in the All-Ireland. I was there with my English husband and my 8-month-old child.
Right.
And I got the seats to be there. And I've often said to Aisling, you were there when we won the Sam Maguire. It was extraordinary. It was just the most vibrant, you know, it was just amazing for us as Donegal people to win the Sam Maguire was like sensational. And then winning it again in 2012, and, you know, and they would be in here with the Sam Maguire, and, you know, there was a good few Donegal Gweedore, the McGee brothers, as you said, Eamon and Niall now is helping. He's one of the staff with Jim, and there's 3 Donegal. I keep saying Donegal. 3 Gweedore guys on the team, and Dara O'Brien and Oran McFadden and Donal McGillivray. So, you know, there's a good kind of strong feeling about it. Everybody's cramming for tickets, for goodness sake, you know. It's just desperate.
Take us back to 1992 then, the first All-Ireland win for Donegal. Was there some suggestion that you were actually going to sing the national anthem that day?
That's how I was trying to get the tickets, because we couldn't get tickets. So I wrote to the GAA and I said I'd sing the national anthem to get tickets. And they said it would be too biased for me to be singing the national anthem. But they gave me tickets anyway, so it was great.
Did they expect a Donegal woman to sing the anthem in a different way and giving up Donegal at the end or something like that?
Oh, I don't know. But you see all the Donegal songs now that you hear.
Yes.
You know, the Hills of Donegal and, you know, and there's a McGrory's Gloss and Wee and all that. There's loads of Donegal songs being played all over the place at the moment. It's great.
Have you got a ticket for this Sunday?
No.
Would you be offering your services to sing the national anthem this Sunday?
I was thinking about it, but I don't know if it'll work this time. But no, I'll actually be watching it in here, because there's a great atmosphere in here, and you know it'll be a madhouse, and you know it's it will be. It'll be really great.
It does feel that there is a real intersection between sport and music in this pub. Out there, obviously, is where you would have played. But then when you come in here, you see the Donegal GAA crest. As I mentioned, you've got the McGee brothers. You got Celtic right here as well.
McGee brothers, the Sam Maguire pictures up on the mantelpiece. Yeah, it's very much like the history, the culture of the area in the bar place of it. And then the music is, you know, all the different accolades and different things that Clannad won, and Enya as well, and it's nice. So it is a nice place for pilgrimage people that have that feel it's a pilgrim for them to come and visit.
Definitely,
you know,
it's an amazing spot. I hadn't realised before chatting to you either that you're a West Ham United supporter.
I am. And you wouldn't think for a Donegal person, but that goes back to when I used to travel, you know, early on with my brothers and my uncles, and you know, I had to just get into sport. Because I'd be sitting by myself. It would be a lonely touring for me if I didn't get into sport. So I did get into sport, and I got involved in. I love all kinds of sports, but when I used to watch matches, I actually sort of grew a liking for West Ham in their playing. They were a lovely, team to watch and play, and I was a big fan of Bobby Moore.
Okay,
and that definitely, you know, was a big factor in it. And the funny thing is, when I met my husband, he was a West Ham supporter as well,
right.
Without me realising it, you know. And we'd been to their old park. Where before they moved to the Olympic Stadium, where I saw Liam Brady play the last match with West Ham, which was astonishing. Actually, he was amazing. He had a wonderful game, and it was lovely to be part of. But I've been to West Ham to see them several times, and we've friends there that can get us tickets over there, and there's a compatriot sort of vibe going on that we've made up for people that were Clannad fans that we met when I was on tour with Clannad in England a couple of years ago, and we went, myself and my son, my daughter, were looking for a pub, and Liverpool and West Ham were playing, and we eventually got a pub in Brighton. We were in Brighton the night before we were playing there. And Liverpool were all up on the balcony and their flags and chanting away. And we were downstairs, and we bet Liverpool that day. They were going out with their head bowed. But we met up with some friends who are really good friends of ours now, and sometimes can get us tickets to get to see them. So no, it's good.
Brilliant.
And it's good to be into sport, you know.
100%. It's an important part. The other thing just worth mentioning here is that Mick McCarthy is over your shoulder there. He obviously has been into the pub at least on one occasion. And I know we spoke to you about this when Jack Charlton died, but like having such an important role in the cultural movement that was Italia 90, in terms of you and your relationship with sport, that must be right up there.
Look, I was so thrilled. You see, when Larry Mullen was doing the song, and then they knew Dennis who was engineering and producing it with him, and they knew I was into football, because I used to go and watch Ireland well before they got into the European Cup and the World Cup, and they did the song, and they wanted some sort of a haunting vibe at the beginning of it. So I was called, and I was absolutely thrilled.
Yes.
I mean, it was just amazing to be part of that. I know a lot of people used to speed the first part of to get into the,
no chance. No chance.
But like it was fantastic, and then doing a video with all the boys, and I'd met some of the boys because of Paddy Kern, whose mum is from here, very involved in Man United, and I've often been to the Man United grounds as well because of Paddy, and met, when Kevin Moore was there and Paul McGrath and people. So I actually knew some of them beforehand. Of course, Packy I knew. But it was really nice. And anytime I meet Mick McCarthy, he always remembers me because he was there trying to play the drums. But it was wonderful. I mean, it was great, with being part of, that day with them and being part of the song and everything, it was mad. And I remember standing here singing it,
right.
When we won. This place went absolutely nuts. There was a Congo people going in and out the back and out the back and out in the front and in sort of it was mental. It was mental. It was all over Ireland. But sports always been, sports and music has always been very much part of this pub.
It certainly has, but it looks at things. Just a couple of other questions for you. I'd just love to get your take on Jim McGuinness. Just like we talk about the genius that's come out of this county on a whole multitude of different levels of discipline. What would be kind of your thoughts on Jim McGuinness on a very broad level? You can speak out to the man, to the football, whatever you like. I
actually think he's quite amazing. I did an event there. I'm the ambassador for the age friendly in Ireland for Donegal. And we had an event there recently, and Jim came along with it, and I had a great chat with him. But he was up on stage just giving his take on, about age, about how you represent yourself, how he talks to the boys and everything. And it was really quite amazing. I was very, very in awe of how he presents himself, how he talks, and his attitude. His attitude is absolutely amazing. And he's a lovely, lovely guy. And it was lovely to spend time with him and get to know him a wee bit, But he's got just an amazing attitude. And the boys love him. And you can see that. There's huge respect there. And he's a great ambassador, for the Donegal team. He really is. And whatever the outcome is in Donegal, he'll still be up there. I think he's just quite an amazing person as a human being. And he's had his own trials and tribulations, but he really is something else.
He certainly is. Will the whole family be watching now on Sunday?
Oh, listen, there'll be cats and dogs watching. Yeah. Everybody will be watching, definitely. I'll probably come over here and watch it.
Yeah,
we'll have the big screen down, and
yeah,
and we'll be all roaring and shouting and
yeah.
Tell
us, will Enya get big into it?
Oh yeah, she'll watch it. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, everybody. I mean, it's the All Ireland. It's Sam Maguire and Donegal's in there. Of course, everybody. Yeah. You can't imagine nobody in Donegal not watching it.
And will it be a win? Will you have Sam Maguire sitting up there in a couple of months' time?
I think we will.
Very good.
I think we will. And Kerry came up here. Was it the beginning of last year? Or was it last year, the beginning of the league or something? We bet them. Yeah. And so we'll do it again.
There you go. You've done it once, you can do it twice.
Yeah, we can.
Moya, thanks a million for your chat. Cheers.
Okay.
Thanks a million for the pints.
Cheers.
And good luck Sunday.
All right.
Right then, our final stop on this road trip through Donegal has brought us to Killeybegs, to the Tara Hotel. Manus Boyle, hero of 1992. You actually got us out of a bit of a hole there earlier on. We were stranded here. We didn't know where we were going to broadcast from, but you've invited us into the beautiful Tara Hotel here in Killybegs. So thanks a million for that. I hope you're well. How are you keeping?
I'm good. I'm not too bad. Looking forward to the weekend. Bit of excitement, fair bit of, as you can see by the colour, all in Donegal, everybody's up for it. Gives us a boost every so often to get into one, so yeah, looking forward to it.
The colour is unbelievable driving into Killeybegs here earlier on. The amount of cars that are painted green and gold, the amount of flags, bunting, it's really, really special. Just first of all, before we talk about Gaelic games, we're just looking out here at a load of fishing trawlers here in Killeybegs. I hadn't quite realised the prominence of the fishing trade in this town.
Yeah, the whole town is built on the fishing in the last number of years with quotas and I suppose sustainability within the fishing industry. It has got a lot quieter. The boats now generally go out around January. They're finished up maybe the middle of March, end of March, maybe a week or two into April, and that's kind of the time they spend at sea.
Okay.
But the town has suffered greatly because of it. The local GA club have been hit with huge immigration over the last number of years, which wasn't the case when we were growing up. When I was growing up in Killybegs, it was a thriving town, and the fishing, suppose, supported the whole of southwest Donegal and further. There was a lot of industry set up around the town because of it, and now that's probably suffering a bit for it.
Has it been replaced by anything? Has tourism at least taken a spike?
I mean, Sleeve League has been a huge help
Okay.
to the likes of the hotels and the bars around. But that's a short season, and again, depending on weather. And Donegal doesn't get it's not Costadale Donegal like it's.
Right.
You get your good days and your bad days, but it's a great spot to be in. And Killybegs, great spot to grow up in, you know.
So would that pier out there have looked quite different 20 years ago?
It would have been full of boats, and well, maybe not at this time of the year. There would have been fishing, but there would have been a lot more activity around the town, a lot more people around the town. 25 years ago, yeah.
In a sporting sense, is Killybegs still known as very much a soccer town with an interest in Gaelic games?
Yes. I mean, we're very prominent, I suppose. We were more prominent in the Gaelic games maybe in the 90s and that, but we grew up playing both sports. We never seen that divide. I played for St. Catherine's for maybe 18 or 20 years. I enjoyed every minute of it. I think maybe before that there was a sense it was more a soccer town and that, and with the help of Jimmy White and Tommy White and Bernard Cunningham and a lot of Brendan Callan, a lot of characters like that, Patsy, they kind of took the GA into the town, and they developed young people like myself, the Cunninghams, Barry McGowan, John Bann, and then the Carberries, and we grew from that. But a lot of it has to go down to Jimmy White, who was brilliant to all of us when we were underage, you know, and just give us that appetite for it and that love for it. And then I suppose we developed into winning minor titles, and then we all progressed then into county teams, and that's where it all come. But I mean, I don't think I ever had any problem, even when I was playing or managing with Killybegs. Never had a problem with the soccer club, and they've always been, you know, excellent towards the Gaelic club and vice versa. And of course, I mean, it's the town where Shane Coleman comes from, so we're all big Everton supporters at times. Yeah. But no, we're all big Shane fans, so yeah.
You were once upon a time a little bit of a blow into these parts.
I was born in Dunlow, but was reared in Burtonport up until the age of 6 or 7. Then my father's a fisherman, so we came here to live and been here for the last 51 years or two, and still a blow-in, but I'm kind of part and parcel of the town now, you know.
Yeah, very good. So your father a fisherman, and then your mother was a dub.
Yeah, she's a dub, proud dub. She grew up in Dublin, Ringsend, Crumlin area. Yeah, she still talks of it fondly. My aunt, sadly, who lived in Dublin, passed away a few years ago, so we miss her. But, you know, when I was playing, I suppose, football for Donegal and we had to play the dubs, it was always interesting. You always got your comment or two, you know. So, yeah, she was a great woman, and typical Dublin humour.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What way did that humour manifest itself 33 years ago?
Yeah, good story. We happened to meet up after the All Ireland around the Christmas time, and went up to see her and was giving her maybe a wee bit of a lip, maybe, and she says, I can't believe you've done that to your own mother. Yeah. And she was pointing out to the fact that I'd played so well against the Dubs, and but I have to say, any time I've gone back to Dublin, met any of the lads from, delighted that they won in '95, because they were a good crowd of lads. Desi, all them lads, Jason Sherlock. They've always had a kind of a place for us, all the Donegal lads, when we go up, make you feel welcome, and it's actually a great pleasure in knowing them and playing against them at the time,
Yeah, and of course Desi Farrell with his connections to this part of the country as well.
Yeah, Desi has a house not too far away. He enjoys his time down here. Again, another Carrick man, relation to Seamus, has that killer instinct in him. Always enjoyed talking to Desi, and good fella. And is always welcome here.
The story from a Donegal fan perspective, I'm sure, is well known. 1992 All-Ireland final, you scored 9 points. You hadn't been starting all year, not since the first round of the Ulster Championship against Cavan. One of the things that we ask a lot of people in a week like this is, what's the build-up to All-Ireland final week like? Back in 1992, it was a much longer build-up, and also you had this bombshell dropped to you in the build-up to it. When do you find out, and how long before the final do you find out that you are going to start this game?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure in the Jim McGuinness era what that could be. That could be an hour before the game, maybe, with Jim. You just don't know. But in our time, I suppose we had a 4, I think maybe 5 week build-up to it. We had a lot of training. I think after the semi-final that I came on, I'd missed the Ulster final. I was suffering a couple of injuries, and I just couldn't get rid of them. I couldn't move them. But after the Ulster final, I had a good week, and I got training, and I got playing a bit of club football, and I just got back into the rhythm of it again, training. I suppose we found out, we played a challenge game against Clare in the opening of a pitch a few weeks ago. I was in the first 15 for that. So that kind of give you a fair indication that you were in their mind, you were in the thoughts. I also kind of had a fair idea too. They wanted to start a secure enough free kick taker. The rest of the boys who had been, plodding along, probably hadn't the same confidence maybe with the ball on the ground as I had, and I think McEniff always had that in the back of his mind, that in order to beat the Dubs you can't miss much at that time. So I was doing all right at training. It was going well. Played a few league games. The injuries seemed to have cleared a bit. For me, I think the build-up was quiet because I wanted to keep it quiet. I enjoyed just going to work. Yeah. The lads at work were brilliant to me. I worked at Nets at that time. I just got on with it. I worked with 3 or 4 lads. They never mentioned the game. They didn't talk about it. They didn't ask. They didn't. There was no word about tickets or anything like that there. So they were all looked. They were all looked after by the club, in fairness. So it was brilliant that you got that space. The only thing that McEniff would have told us is, here lads, leave the papers down. You don't have that comfort now because it's social media and phones and all that there, so I'm not sure how the players react to that. But I kept away from it. We got the word on I think the Wednesday night. Okay. I did know from the Sunday that I was part of it. So you just get there was a wee bit of attention, but I just kept it light, and just kind of making sure my family were sorted for tickets, my close friends were sorted for tickets, and I was, to be fair, around the town they just let us go, and there was 4 of us. We done a couple of interviews, and that was it. It was nice and relaxed, I have to say.
Because the story goes that it was something of a split vote within the Donegal management, and Brian McEniff had the casting vote, and it goes 3-2 in your favour.
He hadn't told me that story, but I knew. I mean, to be fair to the management at the time, everything was based on how you were going, training and that. I happened to play a league game 2 weeks before the All-Ireland final because I asked to play, because I hadn't much football played. I knew Brian was at the game. I played fairly all right, done a bit of scoring and what have you. So Brian would always probably had the confidence within me to he kind of knew what he was going to get. I had other big games that I played before that, the All-Ireland under-21 games in '87 against Kerry, the replay and the first game, I'd done all right. So he kind of knew on big occasions didn't bother me. It was kind of relaxed character, so I think he knew I wouldn't be overwhelmed by the occasion. And I was going well. I think that's what managers look for. They look for the players that are going well, that are not pulling up a training or not looking after themselves maybe so much. They're just looking for somebody that's just intent. And I think I'd done that probably enough in the 8 to 10 weeks after the Ulster final.
And coming on so early in the second half against Mayo was a bit of a sign as well. You did a good bit of damage there in about half an hour.
Well, I got 3 frees. I missed one. I got 3 frees and I got on the ball a bit. But I suppose, I did probably settle it down because we had missed a few frees. We were struggling to score. It wasn't a great game. It's not something that's going to be on the highlights of the JA at any time soon. I think Mayo suffered the same thing. There was a lot of nervousness about it. But I think for the last 20 minutes we were more content. I think we learned an awful lot from Meath beating us in 1990, where we knew we had Meath on the run with maybe 20 minutes to go, and then we lost our way. And I think we learned from that, and we just settled down. The wee man got his hand on the ball a few times. Barry Cunningham came on, he done very well. And the boys were settled. They weren't nervous as they were. Malloy had a big game in the middle of the field. So, yeah, we're settled, and I think too, Tony Boyle inside had the beating of his man, and we knew if we pumped the ball long we were going to get something. I think 2 maybe out of the 4 frees were off Tony. So I do think too that when you come on and you make an impact in the semi-final, it's very hard then for a management team to leave you off for the final,
Yeah, it's mad that these days now they seem to be resisting that temptation. The super sub has now just been embraced, and you kind of stay on the bench really, even if you've had a great game.
Well, to be fair now, the game has changed so much.
Yeah.
You kind of need to finish as strong or maybe stronger than you start.
Yeah.
And the game does get that wee bit more open in the last 15 or 20 minutes. So if you have somebody that can do damage in the last 15 or 20 minutes, yeah, it's a role probably Jim has given the likes of Paddy McBurdy. And probably 30 years ago, McBurdy would start regardless, because he's such a phenomenal player. So, yeah, it's changed, but I do think that the game is still the same.
Yeah.
The game is utterly the same. It's the team that scores the most that's always going to win it. So it's that simple. But I suppose I've enjoyed the way that Jim Gavin and his team have gone about changing it, and because they knew during the National League they were getting maybe wee things wrong, that they tinkered with it in order to get it, and I mean it's definitely helped it.
Just a couple of other things about 92. Obviously, when you get parachuted into the team, it means somebody has to come out. And poor Tommy Ryan obviously missed out in the starting team. How do you deal with something like that? A good friend of yours, a good teammate of yours, and do you just have to coldly not think about the person that's missing out?
I don't. No, I didn't kind of be cold with Tommy. Tommy knew very well what it was about. Tommy was a team player, always was a team player. I know probably when he looks back now, and maybe there might be some bit of bitterness, but Tommy was our best player for the Ulster Championship, and I suppose he hadn't a great semi-final, but a lot of people hadn't good semi-finals, but Tommy just was the one that made way. I don't think it ever affected my relationship with Tommy. I won All-Ireland with him in under 21 in '87. I would consider him, one of the best teammates anybody could have. I don't think it has affected our relationship. I think it was probably a bit of a mistake by Brian, because Tommy had a whole pile to offer, and I don't think we ever seen the best of Tommy Ryan after that.
Really? That got to him after?
I think Tommy was, for our under-21 team in '87, Tommy was at 11, I was at 14, and we might have switched in odd time, maybe without being told on, but there was that, we read each other well, and Tommy was one of those players that had the skill level, but also had that fight in him, bit of a dog, and he was, one of the most prominent players we had to come through that under-21 and made such a huge impact. And I think you're disappointed if I was dropped, I'd be disappointed too, and especially then on such a big day. Maybe his reaction to being dropped probably affected his opportunities of getting on that day. That disappointment, maybe Brian or Mickey Lafferty, who was very prominent in the 92 setup, maybe just thought maybe it had taken too much away from him, but an unbelievable player in his time, you know, and I don't think we ever seen the best of Tommy at that level after that. Like,
It's not a bad accolade to match your All-Ireland medal with and a Man of the Match award for kicking those 9 points. I presume it's the same situation as it is today, where you have to wait until the banquet to find out if you've won the award or not. And surely you knew. I mean, 9 points in 1992 in particular was surely an absolute tap-in for Man of the Match, was it?
well, I don't know. Declan Bonner thought no, it was all his. I mean, Declan liked to share, like between myself and Manus, we scored 13, so he liked to take the credit for those. But no, I suppose I didn't think about it. And I mean, I think we were so focused on beating Dublin and just winning the game. We knew what it meant to people, not only people from Donegal, but people that had gone away. I mean, this county has suffered emigration since the last 100 years. A lot of people have gone away. People in Glasgow, England, America, all over America, Australia, New Zealand. You know, messages came back from everywhere through Brian, through other members of the team, you know, wishing us all the best. And I think that gets to you, you know, that there's something in you that grows, that your connection, that people all around the world don't lose that connection with where they come from. And on a big day like 92, our first final, I think we all got a sense of that. I think that was well portrayed in Malloy's speech.
Yeah.
You know, it was unreal. It was from the heart. He talked about the hills that we all talked about for years and years and years, the Forgotten County, whatever. And I think that there stirred a lot of us on that day. I mean, Brian made one change that was enforced on him. Big Murray got hurt. Barry Cunningham came on. Like, if you were looking back and you were doing marks out of 10 on every one of the lads, you'd be all saying, well, it's between 7 and 8 for everybody. You know, you couldn't say that anybody had a bad game.
Yes.
So I think that build-up that we had, which was nice and relaxed and chilled, and then the word coming through from people all over the world that couldn't be here, but they were still with us. You know, I live in an area called Ballyara, and there was old men there. Unbelievable. They laid the pitch up in front of it with their bare hands. There was maybe a bit of a tractor there. Super J people all through the years never thought in their wildest dreams that they would see the Sam Maguire coming through the main street in Killybegs, like. And I knew that before we left, and all the boys around here knew that, and yeah, that just gives you something that wee bit extra, you know.
It kind of feels like Jim has tapped into that sort of thing again. I'm not sure. Is it the diaspora? Is it the landscape around Donegal? Is it the extremely strong passion that exists in all these towns around this county? But he's definitely done something like that. He seems to be the king of tapping into the emotion of all of this. What is your understanding of the specifics of that?
Well, as somebody that, you know, Jim was in the squad and he was a young lad in the squad, mad as a hatter, by the way.
Yeah.
Funny guy, always up for the crack. But he had an easy life.
No.
He had a lot of hardship throughout that life. And I think, you know, the people of Donegal protected him as best they could. I know the players within our group done whatever they could for him. And always had time for him, and whenever he wanted something or he needed something, there was always somebody there on hand to give him whatever help he needed. But he loved Donegal, he loved playing for Donegal. He came from Kerry to play in National League matches, like when he was at college down there. And he always had this graw, and the people at Donegal always had a graw for him. Maybe it was the long hair and the goatee, who knows, he's a character. He'd probably be one of the boys at the back of the bus starting to sing song on the way home. Yeah. So that charisma, you know, can get out and get into a squad, get into players, and then they want to do well for him because he's a very likeable chap. Like, he's a very likeable fella. So yeah, you want to do as much as you can for him, and then the whole county gathered around him. And what he'd done in 11 and 12 was, he might have changed the way the game was played a wee bit, but that was happening long before Jim. the Killeybegs team of the 90s kept the ball in one of the county finals. I think it was 91 or 92. We kept the ball for 4 minutes.
Is that right? Yeah.
So, I mean...
You're to blame.
We're absolutely, we'll take the blame for it as long as we won it. We didn't care. And I think Jim, I suppose, too, had a great background in basketball.
Yeah.
He loved basketball and he got to the coaching end of it. And I think he learned an awful lot. But that only takes you some of the way. You have to have something inside you that gets people to go behind you and follow you. And he has that, whatever that is, whatever that wee bit he has, he gets them to follow, and he gets the reaction from the players. There's always been excellent players in Donegal. Sometimes if they weren't set in the right direction, it became a problem. But Jim doesn't seem to have that problem.
I remember reading an interview with you doing a piece with Dermot Crowe back in 2017 where you said you were still playing a bit of ball. That's 8 years ago now. At this point, are you still kicking the odd time?
No, only swinging a golf club now. That's all I'll do.
Officially retired?
Oh, since Dermot Crowe done that interview.
that was it?
That was it. No, there was no... And I was only kind of walking through a few games, maybe for Phil. I was involved in coaching in the town, and maybe an odd time I might fill out the team just to make sure the numbers field the team, just making sure that the young lads there were they could go out, play their game. They trained all week. It's difficult when the numbers are way down. The Killybegs team that got to a county final in 2010, and then they got to another county final in 2013. And out of the squad from 2010 to 13, there was only 4 players left. So that's where the emigration hit Killybegs. And so you just wanted to keep it going. There was people that allowed me the opportunity to play the game for years and years and years, and you just wanted to give that whatever you could so that the young people come along get that opportunity as well. So did the 2 Barrys and John Van. They all done their bit over the years to make sure that the club existed and went on and tried from strength to strength. You go through bad times, but you try and keep it going.
Who's the most likely candidate to do a Manus Boyle this weekend? Who's going to come from left of field to save the day for their team?
I certainly hope it's not David Clifford. But for Donegal, I mean, I do think there's a big one coming from Gallen. Okay. I do think
he's been good in Croke Park.
Yeah, he's an excellent player. I mean, maybe short on confidence early in the year, and it could be injury. You just don't know that sort of talk doesn't come outside the squad. But he certainly showed this last number of games that he's getting close and close and close. But the big fella, I mean, Big Michael, unbelievable player, footballer, ambassador, but a real gent. I got to play here a number of times to play golf with him. And again, like McGuinness, there's something in him that just has that drive, has that enthusiasm, and just loves Donegal, loves playing for them. I do think Murphy is going to be hard to handle because he is somebody that can prepare for the big day, Eoin. He rarely lets us down. I think he'll look back on 14 and how he was handled. He'll learn from that and he'll go again. And maybe a dark horse if he gets 20-25 minutes could be Paddy McBurdy.
Yeah.
I think an unbelievable talent. Unfortunate, I suppose, as a manager at Killybegs over those years that he was coming along from under 14, under 16, under 18. But an unbelievable player, and to be still at it many years later, especially the amount of games he's played. He's a great character, and hopefully we'll see him at the top of the steps.
Listen, man, it's very best of luck on Sunday as a supporter. I know you were saying earlier on the luck should all go to the players, but for Sam Maguire, number 3, all the best to Donegal, and thanks so much for recounting some of the tales of 92 with us this afternoon.
Thank you, and you're more than welcome.
Right, we have left Gweedore and we have driven around 45 minutes east, and we're now in the beautiful little spot of Ramelton. Now, Ramelton is home to one of the most famous soft drinks in the eyes of many in the northwest of Ireland. It's got a cult-like status. It is football special. Anybody who has been to Donegal, anybody who has been to Derry and has got a little bit of a thirst on them, they will have picked up a bottle of football special, or they will have at least noticed it in the shops. I'm delighted to say I'm joined here by Edward McDaid, grandson of the man who started Football Special and is deeply embedded with its current production and its current brand and everything to do with Football Special. Edward, it's a pleasure to meet you. How are you doing?
Very good, Owen. Very nice, and welcome to Ramelton, and please come back again.
Yes, the first impressions are very good. So we're in this beautiful Football Special yard here. I'm familiar with Football Special because I've made a couple of trips to Donegal and to Derry. Had I never made it to Donegal or Derry on those trips, I would not know what Football Special is. So I suspect there might be one or two people out there who've got no idea what we're talking about. No better man to give a description of what Football Special is.
Sure, but I'm not going to give you the secret formula.
Of course.
Start with that. There's only two people, and the other guy's he's flying somewhere else. Football Special, it's a mixed flavour soft drink. And its point of difference really is that it's a combination. It's like a layered soft drink. So we started out with a very every small company. Let me go back a little bit in history. Every small soft drinks company, because it's a seasonal business, you can be sure during January and February the boys are looking around. What are we going to do today, lads? The sun's not shining and all that, and we've got all these ingredients around the place for us. So they'll all be messing about, trying to pick a drink that they think, if we can hit something here, maybe we can use this. And Bar's Iron Brew came out of that sort of a development, etc. So our guys would sit around and do the same thing. The point of difference was one of our guys had been trained, one of my uncles, Eoin, had been trained in McGuinness, an old soft drinks company in Belfast. And they were a very big operation. And one of the things that they had was in their syrup room, and the syrup room is the kitchen, the powerhouse for soft drinks. In that particular location, they wrote everything down by hand. They were very, very diligent about what went into the drinks, so they'd follow the recipe. And what this man did when he was with our guys, when they were looking and messing about, is they would say something like, we put a cola in there, or we put a vanilla, and he would say, hold on a minute now, how much? Exactly how much? Was it an ounce or 2 ounces or whatever, or a gram or whatever? And which of the vanillas? Because there's lots of different vanillas, etc. So he diligently put that down, and the sequence within which it was put in, so they could replicate. Now, we had our own water source, which gave us the same constant mineral content and constant temperature. So even the gas level where we get in saturated gas, we could replicate everything. So once the guys would add something to it, they'd say, that's what's given it that little bit of a hint. So we'll reduce that again, or we'll make more of that. And they kept developing it like that. And then they came up with a drink which had a nice flavour to it. But the problem with it was it was not a great colour.
Okay.
So they added a little more to give it the little bit of colour. And then somebody said, if you were putting this into, like a winning cup or something like that, you'd want it to froth up a bit or have a bit of excitement. So they added that to it. And all of a sudden they had this thing which is now Football Special. They called it initially Football Cup. Okay. These guys are quite cocky now. They go along to whatever, maybe the clubhouse where a cup was going to be presented. They'd be playing football themselves. And they would go to the bar of it, and they would give the guys a case of Football Special. Say, now, when we win this cup, we'll be coming in here. Before you stick a bottle of whiskey or some alcohol into that, we want our own stuff in first. They weren't opposed now to the whiskey or anything else, and to be clear about that. Some of them weren't. But they would add this into it. So that's where it came from. It came from that excitement of a winning. And then we called it this Football Special, which was just a little more generic, if you like, rather than the Football Cup. And that's where it's all come from.
There was obviously an interest in sport or in whatever cup that was to do with for football to actually get into the title in that initial spot.
Yeah, and in this part of the world that was predominantly soccer.
Yes.
Whereas that has all evolved. It's all changed. And there was a famous Glasgow Celtic footballer from this part of the world. The what's it called, the Mighty Atom or something they called him. Because he was originally from here, and the guy who taught the All Blacks to play rugby also came from this part of the world.
Right.
And now of course, Gallagher. You never heard? Yeah. If as you leave town, you can pass his home place. At the top of the town, you'll see a plaque on the wall, and we had the All Black guys here for a presentation and all that kind of thing, you know. So there's a lot of sport in this part of the world. And now, of course, we've got young Moore, Kieran Moore now on the Donegal team.
Yes.
And as you came down into the town, Moorfield, that area there, that's where he's from.
Is that where he gets his pace from? Football special?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. Of course he does, you know.
It's quite remarkable because, as I say, it's so famous in this little corner of the country. It's obviously been very successful down through the decades. What set it apart and what's allowed it to compete and better some of the multinational, world-famous soft drink brands?
Well, I think the support really from Donegal people, you know, quite proud of something. If they get something different and they want to support it, they'll get behind it. And of course, then we've got because of immigration, we've got the Donegal diaspora all over the place. So I think that's also helped to it as well. But from our perspective, we really do look after the recipe in a big way. You know, the manufacturers and the suppliers that we have, there's ingredients that we're using that are very, very expensive.
Okay.
And they're natural ingredients, you know, and nowadays in the soft drinks business in particular, everybody's looking at reducing costs. Whereas down through the years we said, well, we'll reduce costs on everything except the actual ingredients because we've got something that's working here. So we're very, very precise about what we use and what we don't use. And because there's a range, like there's 7 different ingredients, now they're all, you know, ingredients that are readily available to any other manufacturer. But just the combination of them and that type of thing is just set it apart from that a little bit of a difference. And I think the fact then it's a fun drink. You know, we want to have a bit of crack out of this. That's what we want, you know. So I think, again, it's been associated with younger people and having a bit of fun and, we won this cup or we won something different. And, you know, it just it attaches itself to the folk memory then of, you know, summertime, having a good time. And, you know, and of course, as you know, in your youth, the sun always shone and you're out playing football and, so look, you're going to have one of these drinks as well, you know. So we don't really understand it, to be honest, you know. But we can talk a lot about it.
Yes.
But it works.
It's
Something's working.
For sure. It is so quintessentially Donegal, but it is available elsewhere. As I've said, you can get it in Derry. Where else is it available?
Well, it's available nationwide, really. Thanks, in many respects, to our Seamus's contacts with Lidl. They really have. They have helped us in a big way, and even recently with the label with the lady on it. As well, that's what's gone out on their side of it. But it's been sort of the Donegal diaspora that has pulled it through to everywhere else, you know. But I mean, you can get it in the States, you know. You can get it in the Bronx.
Yeah,
So,
it's only just getting started. Football special, it turns out.
I think so. Yeah,
We might talk through some of these labels. You mentioned the one here a moment ago when it comes to the women's football player here in the yellow and blue kit, similar to the Lidl branding. Was that a Lidl combination there?
It was, yeah, but you know, the initial concept came from ourselves, and we had used this with for the ladies football team, because the GA ladies team is really dominated by the Termon Club. Which is just down the road from us here, and it's because of, you know, Geraldine McLaughlin and people like that being involved, and they were sort of saying to us, do a bit of sponsorship with us, but listen, it's a very male-looking label, this, so can you not do something about that? So that's where the figure came from. Brilliant. At that time. Now this is long before a little concept, you know, but then we talked to Lidl about it. And of course they came out to it right away and said, oh yes, it seems a good idea. Let's see what we can do. What else we can do with this, you know?
And had it always been the man with the red T-shirt and the sort of the impressive chin on him? Was that always the logo of Football Special?
No, we've kind of changed it a little bit. We had a very good designer who sort of said, look, if you just have a figure which is, say, very clearly a particular team or a particular individual, you're going to get sued for a start, or you're going to have to approach those guys and say what you're going to do with this.
Or Manchester United fans won't buy the bottle because the Liverpool players depicted.
Or even worse than that. Yeah. And I mean, I'm a Chelsea supporter, so you can imagine where I come in the pecking order, you know. So the thing is that what this guy said was, let's stick to the fun aspect of it. Let's stick to the, you know, that's something out of this world, it's different, etc., etc. So he came up really with that. So that's what we've gone to. These ones here, of course, are more based on the original.
Yes.
Which is why you've still got the figures. I mean, this is one we've just brought out now for hopefully our next win of Sam Maguire.
Yes.
You know, and you can see the colours are there. But we've done that before with the 14.
Yes, so what we're seeing here is Murphy football special. I wonder who that could be in front of that.
I've no idea what Murphy that is, none whatsoever. But we would do this kind of thing. We would bring out a bunch of labels at a particular time and put them out there. Again, it's part of the fun aspect of it, to be honest, you know. And it goes down very well, etc. You know.
There's also a McGuinness special bottle here. So these were brought out as limited edition football special bottles in 2014.
2014, yeah. But even before that, I mean, the very first time that Donegal won the league, it was McIver. Brian McIver was the captain at that time. The very first time they won that, we were involved in sponsoring some of the games and stuff like that at that time. You know, so that's I think 2006 or something like that. You know, so we've been always involved with the sporting events and things happening, and thankfully things been happening, you know, on a big scale as it turns out. Like, but it's more to do with supporting the local involvement, and anybody that's doing anything locally, we're very much part of the community-based thing. And again, that has probably helped us to sustain our business, because it's very difficult. I mean, soft drinks is a difficult business. I mean, you're only taking on Coca-Cola and small companies like that, you know. So.
It's interesting. There's a Donegal Wall of Fame here, and you are reminded of how powerful a soccer county this is. Obviously, the 92 champions and Michael Murphy is up there, but the likes of Seamus Coleman and Shay Given and Amber Barrett and Ciara Grant and Packy Bonner. Right. It is a decorated county, to say the very least, when it comes to soccer players. Mm-hmm. Would Ramelton always have been a very strong soccer stronghold, or was it always a kind of a combination of multiple sports?
It would have been predominantly soccer, but there was always sports involved, you know, as well. I mean, there's a local tennis club and things like that too, and there's a bowling club locally. You know, you don't expect this sort of in rural Ireland, that you've got that sort of connection around the place. You know. Yeah. Interestingly, then Letterkenny would be the closest in terms of rugby. Okay. You know. Even though, as I say, the man behind it all, in our perspective of it, came from the wee town itself, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When it comes to the various flavours, what's your favourite?
Yeah, I'm a football special fan, and I also like the banana drink. We do a banana drink.
Yes,
that's
the most well known, I think, is it?
Yeah, you know, and I mean, we've tried to sort of stay away, if you like, from doing an orange and a cola. We do those drinks, but we'll put a bit of a twist of something into them, you know, something different. And we like sort of strong flavours, and you'll get the best strong flavours out of natural ingredients and that type of thing, you know. So I mean, that's what's kept us going. I mean, the banana, for example, you know, the companies who deal with it, like Arden and that too, some big flavour houses supplying it. I mean, these guys work with the guys on the plantation growing the bananas, etc., you know. And I mean, people are looking at me saying, well, what do you know about growing bananas? I don't know a whole lot, but the problem is that it's a natural crop like any other crop, and there'll be good years and bad years. But if you're dealing with the guys that's doing the growing, there'll always be a little bit of it that's going to be better than the rest, so you can stick to that. But then the price, of course, rockets. Yes. And then people go then for what they will call a nature identical, which is really an artificial version of it. And we've always steered away from that. Okay. We've stuck with the price, and you know, it's worked to our advantage. But we like that, those different flavours and those different tastes, and you know, if you can inject a bit of fun into it, you know, that's what we do. And
so the message is to get yourself to Donegal, get yourself a banana flavoured drink. For you, can you picture Kieran Moore back here in a few weeks' time with Sam Maguire? Is it coming back to the hills, do you reckon, this Sunday? I know you're going to be in Croke Park.
Yeah, well, we hope so. But I mean, regardless of whether it does or not, these guys have brought us on a marvellous journey. You know, I mean, it's a strange thing, Owen, but for me, I mean, I've been obviously a football follower for a long, long time. And I mean, the number of times I came down that hill in Clonus on a wet, dreary day, having been hammered. And, now we're back and we're winning in Clonus. That's a big, big thrill. And it's almost like, it's not the same as Sam Maguire, but locally, it's, we're sort of first among equals, because this is all the Ulster teams. And you really feel that and you have to fight hard for it at any time, So, I mean, these guys have brought us on that journey, and now we're heading to Croke Park, So regardless of whether we win or we don't win, these guys deserve our credit, because when you see the level of commitment and sacrifice these young men are making, it's quite extraordinary, it really is. And every time I see them, I think, oh, this is good. And they're all doing their best, absolutely doing their best. So we're with them regardless of how it works out. But we sort of believe, we've got a little bit of magic there that we hope will appear on the day.
You'll have to make some new McGuinness and new Murphy 2025 bottles if they do the job, that's for sure. You might even be able to put a first name there if anybody of those surnames do well on Sunday.
You never know.
Listen, Edward, great to chat to you, and thanks so much for making time for us.
Okay, not at all. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
And thanks for coming here.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Right, delighted to say we are here with All-Ireland winner, All-Star with Donegal, Frank McGlynn. Frank, how are you getting on?
I'm good, yep. Pleased to be here.
We were listening to a little bit of Jim McGuinness during the weekend. There's a sense that what he carries from his first stint as Donegal manager is the hurt of 2014 as much as the joy of 2012. What do you carry into 2025 in terms of that era as a Donegal footballer?
I suppose it would be a mix of both. You remember the good times of 2012 and you try to forget 2014, to be honest. But that hurt's still there, when you talk about All-Ireland finals. There's no getting away from a defeat. The difference between winning on All-Ireland final day and losing on All-Ireland final day is just day and night. It's not even covering it, so it's not. So you do always have those regrets, and I suppose that a few players out in the pitch come Sunday have a chance to maybe right those wrongs maybe for 2014.
Was there a manner to how you lost that day that makes it harder to take?
Not in particular. I think just it was the overall feeling that we probably didn't do ourselves justice as a team. And I suppose I need you go out if you can put your best foot forward and play to the best of your ability, and you come out on the wrong side, you can accept that, and go away happy. But I think for one reason or another, we just didn't get to the pitch of the game. We just didn't get to the performance levels that we'd been used to, and I suppose that's the most disappointing thing when you look back on a game, and it's just a pity it happens, here and there. It happened in the hurling final there, and there's no apparent reason for it. It's just unfortunate that it happened on one of the biggest days in the calendar year for us.
Because there was a sense as well that Kerry weren't at their best, and maybe neither team were at their best in the 2014 final either. Like Brian McHugh was saying as well that he's never watched the game back. Have you watched it back?
No, to be honest, I haven't. No,
well, I mean, why would you? I guess
it's not. Yeah, and it's not. I didn't choose not to watch it back. I just never felt the need. I suppose the small things in that game are probably ingrained in our minds for now anyway. So it is. So without watching back,
like what?
It's just even that not getting to the pitch. I remember I was marking Donegal Odyssey in the beginning of the game, and I just remember having that feeling that you were just struggling. You just never seemed to be at the same pitch to what you were used to, and it was probably a feeling that I probably wouldn't have been too used to, previous to that. And it was just that struggling feeling that seemed to be with us for the whole game. That no matter how hard we tried, that things just didn't seem to be working out the way that it would have previously.
There's a massive difference from 2014 to this year in many regards. But one of the elements is the semi-finals in that year compared to this year are totally different. Like, you had an epic win against Dublin in a close match, which you won well in the end, I suppose, but Dublin had a bit of a lead. And then Kerry and Mayo was a replay that went down to Limerick, obviously, in those two famous matches. Whereas this year, Kerry were comfortable enough against Tyrone, and Donegal absolutely annihilated Meath. So semi-final form this year is much harder to look into than it was in 2014, it seems.
Yeah, I suppose it is difficult to gauge both teams, going based on the semi-finals and indeed the quarter-finals. Donegal against Monaghan played in patches and probably played for a short period of time. There was enough to get over Monaghan, and similar to Kerry as well, put 15-20 minutes of really good football in Penn Darman in the quarter-final and won the game in a short space of time. And that's the one thing. And with a 2-week turnaround too, there's times. I do remember the lead up to the 2014 final. You're almost jealous of the players now that it is that short 2-week window. I think we might have had 4 weeks. We were waiting in the replay in the Mayo Kerry game. So 4 weeks is a long time, I suppose, in preparation for an All Ireland final. And I suppose the players, they're used to that 2-week schedule now. A lot of games back to back there. In semi final, they had a 2-week break, and they've another 2-week break to the final. So they're going to just fall into that same routine again, and they'll be counting down the days now to Sunday.
It does feel that Donegal is a county that embraces an All-Ireland appearance as much as anywhere else. We were down at Tipperary and at Cork last week before the hurling final, and the colour in Donegal is above anything that we saw last week. The 3-week or 4-week versus 2-week situation, how different is that, and how big a task was that for you to try and deal with the brilliant colour that goes on around Donegal on All-Ireland final build-up?
Yeah, I suppose with the 2-week window, I suppose you don't really have time to get involved in the press activities or the outside activities as such. But with a 4-week window, I suppose there's that time where people would maybe expect you to be involved and willing with the time, and then the training schedule then becomes difficult to manage over 4 weeks because you're really gearing towards the All-Ireland final day, and that's very hard to do 4 weeks out. There's almost a certain element that you just have to train to keep the fitness up before you can really focus in. Whereas in the 2-week window, I suppose you're spending the first day or two recovering after the All-Ireland semi-final, and then it's straight back into preparation, and every day is vital then in that preparation when you only have the 2 weeks.
When it comes to what Jim McGuinness has done in his second stint, are you seeing a different version of him? I mean, the rules have meant that his approach to football has necessarily had to be completely different. But in terms of how he is dealing with his players, in terms of what you're seeing as Jim McGuinness, the motivator, anything different to Jim 2.0?
Not really. I suppose from the outside looking in, it was, I suppose, totally different when you're a player involved in that. You know the ins and outs and the things that are going on, but I suppose once you're outside that collective, once you're outside the panel, you're only looking in as a spectator like anybody else. But from the outside, there's a huge amount of similarities. If you even go through the players from 1 to 34, 1 to 40, whatever's on the panel, I suppose you could probably stand over the statement that every one of those players have progressed and improved as footballers. Some have made huge strides as footballers, and that was quite similar to ourselves, from the back end of 2010 right through to 2012 and into 13 and 14. There was progress made there, both on an individual basis, but more so on that collective side of things. And I suppose it's that collective thing that's really catching again. So it is, that everyone in 1 to 15 and subs are all playing their part. There's not 2 or 3 people that's standing up every day and winning games. There's people having off days, and yet that's not even an issue because there's other people standing up and doing the job and making sure that the team's getting the win.
How did you become a better player over the 4 or 5 years of Jim?
With training, first and foremost, there was a huge lift in the training, the intensity of training, the volume of training, and I suppose it made us fitter, it made us more athletic, so it did, and then that probably gave us the confidence. And the one thing that Jim probably always has is clarity as to what his plan is, and that plan doesn't really change, although Donegal is probably in the All-Ireland final this Sunday, but I would guess the language hasn't changed since Jim started 2 years ago. The language has probably been the same on day one as what it is now. Even the new rules came in this year. Jim would have had a plan for those at the start of the year, and I don't think that plan would have changed. So there's a huge sense of safety in that you're not chopping and changing. No, this didn't work for us last weekend, so we're going back to the drawing board and we're going to try this. I suppose Jim has huge faith in himself, and that probably develops then into the playing group. And when he's so clear on his own goals and his own plan, that sort of encapsulates the whole group then.
There's a confidence in that, I'd imagine, when you have that belief from your coach and the clarity, as you say, in what you're doing. Like you make that brave pass, you do that thing on the pitch that leaves you with no doubt that you're doing the right thing. Even if it doesn't come off, it feels that there's a great comfort in the way he approaches his dealings with players.
Yeah, you're told, you're encouraged, you're told to go and do, you know, whatever you see best. Everyone has their roles and everyone has their jobs to do, but when I suppose in the game's there to be won, it's up to the players themselves on the pitch to go and do that. And that was the one thing that was always pressed upon the players of the group, that when the push came to shove in those games, it was down to the players on the pitch that had to go and won it, you know. And I suppose the language that Jim would use in the background, then, you know, that you're not just won it for your teammates or for yourself or for the management team. It's a county you're playing for, you know, and that's probably reflected in the support that the Donegal teams and the Donegal players get.
I know 2014 is going to be brought up an awful lot this week for obvious reasons, but you faced Kerry on other occasions as well. Like 2012 was the last time you had Jim McGuinness versus Jack O'Connor on the sideline, and you came out on top on that occasion. How big a deal was taking down Kerry that year on your ascent?
I suppose, yeah, Kerry would have been seen as, you know, at that time, along with Tyrone. Tyrone probably were the kingpins of Ulster in 2010. You know, they'd won Ulster in 2009, 2010. They were going for 3 in a row, and it was getting over Tyrone and Ulster was a huge thing for Donegal. I suppose we'd been to Croke Park previously. You know, we'd have won against Kildare and then come up short against Dublin. So I suppose Kerry were the next big team, you know, next to Dublin, Tyrone around that era, and getting a victory against one of the top sides in Croke Park was a huge boost for us, and it did propel us on into the semi-final. On that Kerry game in 2012, it was similar to any other game, and it's something that Jim was very good at. That the opposition was never really massively a massive focus of meetings. It was mainly just our own, you know, the team, the panel, what we were in control of, and what things that the team was going to do on the day.
Was that always the case in your experience with Jim, or were there maybe 1 or 2 games, maybe like that Dublin game in 14, where you have to pay a little bit more due deference to the opposition?
Yeah, you do. I suppose. And the management team has always been, Jim's management team is always very good at picking out the strengths and weaknesses of the opposition. And like every team, every inter-county team up and down the country, you always look at the opposition, but you set out your own plan then to I suppose negate their strengths, and I suppose to make the most of your strengths. And that plan will be put in place, and the players will just implement that plan. And as I said before, Jim McGuinness, his backroom team, the players will go into that game with huge confidence that if that plan is implemented, that they're going to come out on the right side of it.
Did you play the 2019 game against Kerry?
We did. I did. I think came on as a sub at the drawing game in 19. Yeah.
The plan for David Clifford that day, was that a big thing in terms of what you spoke about? I know Jim wasn't manager at the time.
Yeah, I suppose David Clifford, whenever any team is playing against David Clifford, there's probably a plan at that time. I suppose there was always the sweepers or the double sweepers that were in play during those games, which are not as prevalent now. But my one abiding memory of that game was that it was one of those Super 8 games that it was falling in the middle game as well, that it wasn't a knockout game of football, and it was open up and down type play, and there was huge scores, whereas I think if it had been a real knockout semi-final, I don't think the style of play would have been the same. I think both Kerry and ourselves knew at that time that we were heading into a third game in the Super 8s, and it was really going to come down to that last game, which probably added to the type of game it was, that it was free flowing and good attacking football. Whereas when there's an All-Ireland title at stake, I don't think anyone will be playing as flippantly come Sunday.
Talk to us about what you expect from Brendan McCall then this weekend. I think it was Stephen McMenamin who had the thankless job of marking Clifford back in 2019. McCall is definitely going to be the man this Sunday. He's become one of the best man markers, one of the best backs full stop in Gaelic football. What can we expect from him?
I expect, Brendan will just go out and do his normal job. I think there's a huge deal of confidence behind Brendan McCall within the county here in Donegal. When you look back through the games that we played to date, and any of the man marking jobs Brendan has been given, whether it's Rian O'Neill or Dara Canavan, any of those players, Brendan does seem to do that job really well, and does a job in a quiet fashion that doesn't seem to be overly aggressive for in your face type defending. And I suppose that's one thing that Brennan's probably going to use. Again, he's got great footwork and great speed, so he has, and I suppose maybe there's a lesson in the Tyrone game and previous games that I suppose anyone trying to mix it with David Clifford, may not be the best approach. I do think the type of defender that Brendan is, he'll give space whenever the space can be given, and he'll be touch tight when needed to be. But when you get bogged down into a man marking job, I don't think anyone's ever going to man mark David Clifford and keep him out of the game for a full 70 minutes. But it's one thing that Donegal do seem to have, that middle sector and around the D area never seems to be too open against opposition teams. I think David Clifford, the last day when he got the better of Pauric McShea over the cuts or reverse runs or getting the hand pass into his chest, he seemed to have that space that he was there to attack into, whereas I don't think the space is going to be there against Donegal for him to do something similar.
Michael Murphy lifts Sam on Sunday, let's say. There's no question that he's Donegal's greatest ever sports person. He's probably already there, or probably in the conversation already, right?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose talent. He's up there with the best, but his leadership qualities, and the way he goes about his business. I can't speak for this past year now since he's come back into the panel, but I can imagine his attitude probably hasn't changed since he started back in 06-07 with the Donegal team. I can imagine any Monday or Tuesday, once the pitch session is to be done, I suppose he's gone out there and given his all, regardless of whether it's a training session or match. He's not one that switches off during the week and then just turns up on a Sunday. He'll be out in the training pitch this week driving himself and everybody else on, and I suppose for the younger players maybe that maybe are only getting used to Michael Murphy this year, they're probably learning, and you learn by looking at Michael Murphy on the training pitch. You can't help but really just be swept along with him. He would never ask any of the other players to do anything that he wasn't willing to do himself, and I think you can see that from the way he's playing. But I suppose for someone of his age, for to take 2 years out of inter-county football while he was still playing club football, there's probably a huge step up in the level to what he's at now. But he's got to that level, and he's been at that level all year, and we're just hoping that he can continue that now for one more game on Sunday.
Definitely. Listen, Frank, enjoy Sunday. I'm sure you're predicting a Donegal win. Just one last question. The buzz around here, how has that manifested itself in terms of the tickets? Because as I say, we were doing the hurling last week in Cork, was just absolute bedlam. Is Donegal experiencing similar issues?
Yeah, something similar. Yeah, I don't think there's a club in the county has got enough tickets to keep everyone happy. So I suppose it's par for the course for All Ireland final day, but I suppose everybody's got their fingers and toes crossed that there'll be extra tickets coming up closer to Sunday.
Enjoy it. Best of luck to Donegal.
Will do. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.